Alright, hello everyone. Looks like my camera is working, because it kinda didn't want to work, but everything looks okay. Now what isn't working is my respiratory system, thanks to allergies, so that's great, but hopefully I can get through this without dying live on stream, and if I do, well, you'll have a great clip. Uh, Hopefully. Best we can do in that situation. Alright. I haven't streamed in over a week, technically. 2 weeks. It's weird, because I skipped these days. But that means my last stream was on... Alright, it was this Monday. It was not 2 weeks. Oh my god, there it goes, there we began with death. Get ready, get your clips ready. Get the live leak ready. I'm ready to die, live on camera. Alright. So yeah, I haven't streamed in nearly 2 weeks because I took 1 week off. Here's the beautiful thing. Let me see if this happens on Linux, because I actually haven't tried programming on this computer in a bit. When I was streaming, I was having some really ridiculous bugs. Really ridiculous. But now that I wasn't streaming for a bit during the break, guess what? They kept showing up. They kept being just as ridiculous as always. I'm gonna see if this one happens here too. Alright. So, technically this worked on my laptop. Might be a different configuration, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna launch this program, which has a picture of that guy over there. That guy over there. Thanks, Jester, for looking up. And I'm gonna launch another one of these. I'm gonna do it again, and ooh, the picture didn't load. I'm gonna do it again, and the apps didn't load. And I'm gonna do it again, and now it works. I'm gonna do it again. And, oh, there it was glitching. Now that didn't load. There's this. Alright. Okay. Eventually, this can crash. There's been a few reasons why it could crash, and I've solved most of them, but it can still crash. Here's the funny thing. It only happens if you launch... Fuck off. This program right here. Any other one works perfectly fine. Only this one crashes. This is the code for it, okay? So it has a main function. It calls image example. It does all this shit here. Right, here's the issue with it. It still happens when I do this. Again, I didn't get the crash to happen. It did crash. The launcher crashed because of something that's happening. Only when I launch this process. Anything else seems to work mostly fine. Again, that's how it is on my laptop. Seems very non-deterministic. It just does whatever it feels like. So maybe some days it... maybe if I try another process on here, it won't crash. Or it will crash. Or... I don't know. I don't... I worked on it Monday a little bit. Tuesday a little bit. Yeah, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. Perfectly fine. Perfectly... Okay, no, never mind, there it is. Alright, eventually it happens here as well. So yeah, I worked on this bug Monday or Tuesday, I don't remember. Alright, give me a second. Yeah, stream's going well. Glad to be back. Glad to be back. It's been amazing. It's been what, 14 minutes? And honestly, I started it a little bit earlier than usual, and I also waited a little bit longer than usual to actually start the stream. So, alright. confession time. I didn't wait a little bit longer than usual to start the stream. The issue is I was on my laptop, I got distracted, and I didn't realize it was past the time to start the stream. So, yeah. I didn't wait. I accidentally waited too long. So yeah, things are going well. Things are going well. I have a bug that happens. Apparently this is causing memory corruption of some sort. Or making memory corruption worse, whereas other programs, apparently it happens as well.
Sigma.
Who the fuck knows? I don't know. Why is that back? Was that little thing that shows up like here always there? I thought I deleted it. I got rid of it. Anyway, yeah. Bug so annoying I decided to not work on it. I decided, you know what, I don't want to do this. And I stick by that decision. Just don't open that program multiple times, and if you do, well, I guess you won't get to see this guy's face a bunch of times. Yeah. Great things happening in software development nowadays. Also, because I took a break, I didn't touch grass because it's not recommended when you have allergies. But I did take a break, and I haven't been keeping up with the AI bullshit for a while, and I like that. It's great. It's one of those things that just completely disappears. This revolution completely disappears the second you stop listening to people who get paid to promote it. As all good revolutions do, of course. So yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Even Twitter stopped showing me AI stuff. Now it's mostly pop culture stuff. Not sure why I don't follow anyone in that field, but I do sometimes look at those tweets. Anyway, did you know Doja Cat had to cancel a concert yesterday because it rained in Barcelona? I did. You know what I didn't know? Some AI bullshit. I'm happy that way. You know what I don't know is the performance of Claude 6.7 or whatever the fuck. 4.7, 4.8. Don't know, don't care. Let's move on. Alright. The allergies are really getting to me. A few things I want to work on. Sadly, I have them on my laptop. I didn't move them over. But I have a few things I want to work on. I'm going to use at least a little markdown, even though I'm not going to do markdown. But this kind of helps me, like, type like this. It looks nice and blue. Alright, so four different features that I want to work on. One of them I actually started working on off stream, and then I was like, you know what, I should probably do that on stream. It would be interesting to go through this stuff, reason it out, and also I don't feel like doing it right now. So, reason to procrastinate. That is this booting thing here. Alright, so in my system right now, the boot process is always the same, always very, very basic, very simple. You got, you do some setup, some basic mem setting of memory. That makes sense. Then you have some values here that are being set based on the actual booting process, which is like this assembly code here. That's completely irrelevant. That's just hardware configuration. This is more hardware configuration. This is detecting the hardware based on the board type. Starting the MMU for memory protection, allocation stuff. Then we start the Raspberry Pi's mailbox. Set exceptions so that when there's an exception, we handle it instead of it just crashing the entire system. This possibly should happen a little bit earlier, but I'm honestly not sure. Then we start a main process, which is just process with ID 1, and it kind of just doesn't do anything. It just collects all the memory that the system uses throughout its booting process. Then we load the console, which gives us all this. Print hardware just shows us hardware information of the system. Pretty much just board type 1, which is Vert, 2, which is Raspberry Pi. Load an RNG module, not sure that this is strictly necessary. We start this, not the scheduler, the interrupts. We enable them. We start the disk, file system, load the theme, and here we have some options. But one thing that I wanted to do with it is you can configure the screen size that you want in a virtual machine based on the settings theme.config file, one of these. So I kind of moved stuff around. I made the disk initialized first. It used to be the GPU first. Now it does that. And I want to work on this to do, essentially. That's kind of part 1. Which is that in some cases, if I want to make this operating system distributed, that means that by definition we will have some machines that don't use a graphics module at all. So it should be possible to do that, to run it in headless mode. Right, so I want to configure that. Should be a setting that I set in the settings file, and then if you don't want to load it, you just don't load it. Kind of allow the system to fail at loading a GPU. All of that stuff. I also considered maybe it would be useful to initialize network a little bit faster so that I can do some network-based debugging or network booting. That can be useful especially for developing drivers and stuff. And yeah, the rest of the booting process stays the same. But yeah, I kind of want to go over that a little bit. And then there is this thing. This state machine written in C++. I don't know why I thought a state machine needed to be written in C++. What possible benefit C++ would give me for the state machine, but I want to redo it in C, and now considering all the possibilities. Like, for example, if you don't have graphics, you don't launch into the app launcher, the one that was failing just a minute ago. Or maybe the user wants to start the app in the terminal, so you show them the terminal instead of the window manager, you know, whatever. Those kinds of options. So rewrite this thing with those things in mind. So making the boot process a little bit more customizable, because of course, if I make the system distributed, most likely at some point there will be a screen and graphics, but not always. So it makes sense that you don't waste time working with graphics when you don't really have them. So that's what this stands for. Well, let's call it actually headless mode. That's the fancy term that I used in my notes. You don't care about AI, why are you using Z? I hope that answers the question. Alright, another thing that I wanted to do. Alright, so I wanted to kind of rewrite the Fuse driver that I wrote for Linux to also help me do like distributed system stuff. Using Linux also as a node in that distributed system is to use the Fuse driver, the Fuse library. What is it called? System, which is file system in user space, to create a special file system that I can use to power certain features similar to what I do in my system, but on Linux. I did a first version of this, and I was supposed to use that to then develop the file system further, but I actually ended up developing the file system within the operating system itself. So it was supposed to be like I develop it in Fuse and then I move it over to the operating system. Instead, I did it the other way around, so now I need to move it over to Fuse. Fucking allergies, my god. Isn't it great? Then I kind of want to pick up encryption again. This is another thing. So I'm kind of more interested in working on these two things today and tomorrow. Maybe today working on the booting thing. Tomorrow I want to work on the encryption stuff. I wrote a very simple prototype for an encryption library, but I've always said, if you implement encryption, you probably will want to rely on third parties, well-tested, battle-tested libraries for any actual usage of encryption. So my plan essentially is to make a encryption library where I have my own implementation if I so wish, and then I can use that library as a wrapper around another better encryption library. So I kind of have to create what the interface of this library is going to look like. And for my hacking game, I kind of wanted to create a very basic recreation of the encryption, of the most common encryption algorithms, but using very small numbers, essentially, so that it's technically correct, it's technically encryption, it's technically secure, but it's very, very easy to brute force because it's for a game. So yeah, I wanted to have like a proper library spec with a toy implementation that I can then also replace with a third-party implementation that this library wraps around. Alright, so those are the things I want to work on. Today I kind of want to work on this one. I think it makes more sense. Also, I wrote a very simple overview of my system. Let me see how many. Very simple overview of the system and its main features. It's 195 lines of text, not of code. Although I wrote it in Z, so kind of interchangeable. So of course I want to reinvent wikis, because that's what we do around here. We reinvent the wheel constantly, so that I can have, some proper documentation for my system. But this is a good start. I actually have it here. I don't know why I'm looking at it on my laptop when I literally moved it over right before the stream. I wrote a bunch of very basic bullet points for how the system works. This is kind of how you can run it. Then we got the structure of the project itself, like how these folders are structured. Structure of the kernel and architectural designs, how the UI works, how the UI works from a developer's perspective, like how to work with the UI. How the terminal works, same thing, how it works from a developer's perspective, what you can do with it, including some of the stuff that I did recently, like formatting through this little format here. As well as emitting structured data with these steps here. Of course, all of that is in one file. It would be great to actually have a proper, file format thingy going, something that I can use to display this in a pretty way inside the operating system. What else? It also talks about the file system modules, folders as files, which is a little bit of a special case in the file system, the buffer type, which is used to work with the file system simpler way, how data signatures work, the virtual file system that userland has, which might be the culprit for the bug I showed earlier, how to work with the file system as a developer, .red packages, the home folder, how to work with the theme for developers, networking is a work in progress, signals are a work in progress mostly because they don't really do a whole lot right now. And there's probably a few other things that I haven't documented. But yeah, it's a good start for starting to write some proper what is it called? Some proper... Ooh, where did I move that? I did not mean to do that. Some proper documentation and proper resources for the system. Alright. So I'm going to save all that here, and today I want to work on this thing. If my allergies again don't kill me. Seem to be doing better than I was doing this afternoon, so that's good. Alright, so again, if the system's going to be distributed, we won't always have a GPU available. Actually, kind of need to look over everything. There's already a few modules that the system considers to be optional, mostly because the Raspberry Pi doesn't have drivers for them yet. Like, alright, things like the mailbox for the Raspberry Pi. The mailbox is how you talk to the GPU. The GPU is what actually powers the system. When you boot a Raspberry Pi, it first goes through the GPU, then the GPU wakes up the CPU, then you can actually have access to the CPU. For someone who loves to talk about open source, they sure went out of their way to make it closed and as opaque as possible. Really wonderful board. It's really, really beautiful. I'm very happy that I picked the Raspberry Pi as a target for this operating system, because it's been nothing but joy. Can't you tell how happy I am? So yeah, this is kind of a driver that you have to have. Console, technically you don't need to have UART, but you probably will, and it works even without UART, so you'll be fine. Not sure why this RNG module is here. Where is it being used? What happens if I don't load an RNG module? Nothing. Alright. The thing about the RNG module is that this module is just creating /random. That's pretty much its job. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, here it is. I created this function. Alright, there go the allergies. Oh god. I created this function to load utility mods. Mods being modules. Where the clipboard, LFSP, which is an LSP but through the file system, and the RNG are loaded from here. Just so I can start decluttering that kernel.c file. Where is that random? Here, random.h. Alright, so you come with me. Makes more sense to initialize this here instead of in the main list of modules. After that, we just print a little debug to know which board we're working on. We initialize interrupts, we enable interrupts, and we start initializing actual system modules. First the disk, then we use that to initialize the file system. Alright, so about the file system. Can this fail? Yeah, okay, this module can fail. Right, so the thing is that what I currently call the home folder is actually loaded by a special driver, the VirtIO9P driver, which is not available on the Raspberry Pi, might not even be available for everybody. So that can technically fail. But if I'm not mistaken, the system can still boot with that. It just doesn't have that. No. There. Alright, now it can, whether this fails or actually loads, should still return true because this is technically considered an optional one. Now when I put it that way, I kind of regret calling it the home module a little bit. Might go back on that name and call it shared again, but I'm using it like a home folder, so kind of made sense. Anyway, we load the theme mod, and the theme mod just pretty much loads one of these files, which is supposed to be TOML, but I don't have a TOML extension. That sucks. Yeah, it's supposed to just configure stuff like the logo that shows up at the beginning when you boot the system, what text shows up when the system panics, password, which is currently not used, system name, you can even change that, whether you want to use the network or not. And I added a couple more options. I added, well, there's a play startup sound, which is 0 by default, but let me see actually if this works. Well, that's not a good sign. Okay, so it played. Took a while, not sure why. That wasn't great. But yes, we have a startup sound which is off by default. And then a preferred screen size. So that you can configure that. Because Mac kind of makes it a pain in the ass to work with regular freaking pixels. Because of like retina displays and stuff. So this option is useful for not making the screen too big. Because the default of 920 by 1080, oh, 1080, not 1800, on Mac actually takes up my entire screen, which is a 4K screen, so more than twice the size. Yeah, thank you for that, Mac. If I specify a window size that should be this, why am I getting double this? You would think they wouldn't do something so stupid, but Apple hasn't exactly been the most focused of companies in the last few years. Let's leave it at that. They've done a great job, especially compared to some others, but they've kind of forgotten a few things. So, Tim Apple, you will be missed. RIP. Anyway, yeah, I added this option because it was a pain in the ass to work on Mac. And now I want to add a new option, which is headless. And with headless, we should just not load this. Pretty simple. Alright. So the option itself is going to be pretty easy to add. I just have to add it to this type here, system config, headless. It's going to be off by default. Default value is going to be 0 for this because by default you do use the GPU. Again, that can fail. Like if you don't have a GPU available, it will just fail to use it. This is more so for Raspberry Pis that technically have a GPU, but they're not connected to anything, so it doesn't really make sense to use the GPU if you're not seeing the output. Not for graphics. It could make sense for other things, but we don't have other things, so for now it's okay to just disable the entire GPU. No, headless false by default. Headless has to be false by default. Alright. And then if I'm not mistaken, I added these two macros that make it really easy to parse. Well, where is it? Parse these options into the correct types and the correct stuff. So really all I have to do is parse a toml for headless inside of system config using the parse int 64. Well, int u64. Because it's a 0, 1 value. It's a boolean. Don't really have explicit boolean parsing, but it isn't really needed. Alright. Then the last thing, okay, so I have it set to 1. The last thing is to actually make this value do something, and if not headless, system config. Alright, there we go. If it's not headless, then we load the graphics module. If it is headless, we don't load this module, and then we're supposed to do some other configuration, which we'll get to later. But for now, that's what it takes, and indeed, it did not initialize the display, but based on what I see down here, it works fine. Alright. Seems like scheduler started, but really it expects me to... I'm trying to see if I can still do stuff without actually... Wait, hold on. I should be blindly navigating the system, but I'm not seeing anything. Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah. There are some logs. Okay, so I did do that. So, like that, I should be opening a window, and that should be opening a process. Unless that failed, because that was failing before. But I'm not seeing it opening anything. And again, I'm navigating blind, so who knows, who cares. At least we get rid of the to-do. Alright. Okay, so I can just not load graphics. And... not sure what I should do in that case. I mean, I should... what should I do in that case, actually? I should make it terminal only, but I don't really have a way to give the terminal input. Alright, so I'm gonna do something. Because I currently don't have a way to get any feedback outside of this module, I'm just gonna ignore this for the time being. I'm still gonna load the module even though it's not supposed to. I'm gonna do the next parts to adapt the system to work without a GPU, and only then will I actually disable the GPU, otherwise it doesn't make much sense. Alright, so when we launch the system, we create a boot process, which is again just a very complex, well, very complex. It's actually very simple. This is its code, but it's a over-engineered state machine. Over-engineered mostly because it's C++ and nobody likes C++, so we're gonna get rid of C++. Finally. Finally, we're getting rid of C++. Oh my god, it's going away, thank you. Well, another class of C++ that's going away. There's still some C++ left in the system, but as time goes by, less and less C++ appears around here. And that's always a blessing and something that I'm very, very happy to have. Alright, so I'm going to rewrite this entire thing. All of it. But what it currently is doing is, we technically still have the GPU available, taking forever to run a simple script, then showing that, then showing this logo, which again is also customizable through the same config file. Then after you get to that, you get to this point, which is the desktop. You can draw windows in here, and the windows get launched with a launcher, which is a visual way of launching applications. One of the options that I'm going to add is that instead of adding the launcher, you launch the terminal directly. And in headless mode, the terminal should be the way to interact with the system, so we should have UART interactions with the system, but since I currently don't have that, we'll get to that. That's going to take a little bit. It's not going to be immediate. It's not going to be an exactly immediate thing. Although UART is the answer to my question of how should you even get input to the system. UART. I like C++, I like suffering, yep. Oh, I just say the same thing twice. Yeah, I guess if you enjoy suffering, and you don't own a Souls-like game, you can just program in C++. I own several Souls-like games. And I programmed in C++, which really sucks. Hate that I did that. Alright. Alright, so from the kernel we call this init boot process, which creates a kernel process based on this function, which it creates the object first. I was wondering where that was. Why is this here and not here? I have no idea. So it would make more sense to have it here. But anyway, also this, why is this code here? Just put it here, God. Anyway, this just creates a process called the boot state machine, which again should take you from the screensaver to the desktop to the login screen. That was a thing that is no longer used. It will be in use again eventually. Also will be helpful once we have proper encryption. But or even non-proper encryption. But yeah, we're just gonna redo this entire thing. I just want to kind of look at its logic just to be fair, but honestly the logic is so simple. Just why I left a note saying this is over-engineered, just use C. Which we're also gonna get rid of. Very happy to do that. Alright, when we initialize, we do all of this stuff here. So first off, we disable visual, which disables this visual console that shows up at the beginning, this one. If you don't do that, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be very weird. Not quite, but... No, surprisingly no, okay. I built the system reliable enough that this is no longer needed, technically. Then in the Raspberry Pi 5, there's some limitations for interrupts. So I have to handle USB through polling, which is incredibly slow, by the way. So I have a process that polls USB. So it starts that. Then at this point, alright, we have this. Oh, didn't mean to delete it. Although I do need to move this code. We get the screen size from the GPU. We configure the mouse for the first time. We tell the mouse, hey, by the way, you can start being used now at this point. And we tell it to start at the middle of the screen. Middle of the height, middle of the width. And this is the boundaries through which you can move the screen size. Then we tell the state machine to advance to the first state, which is boot screen, which just creates this process here. Alright, so incredibly simple code. We don't need C++ for it. But then we're going to make it a little bit more complex. We're going to add a little bit of extra stuff to it. Alright, but first off, start moving stuff one by one. Alright, first, screw it. Don't care if the system doesn't compile for a bit. You're becoming a C file. Alright, so the function was called initialize, but it should be called something a little bit more descriptive because now we are in C and we not have namespaces or classes to separate the stuff. You take the good with the bad. This is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it can be annoying that init is a perfect name for a function, but here I have to call it actually, the USB start polling goes here. And this one I'm going to call visual init, which is disabling the visual console, getting the screen size, and configuring the mouse. Alright. So we call that function, and this is where we do only if we're not in headless mode. Which... Whoops, forgot to get rid of you. My bad. Sorry, dude. Theme.h should contain a system config type, which has the headless value in it. Alright, so if it's not headless, then we do the visual initialization. And then we should eval. There's a few things still missing, a few visual init. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just this. These three includes should be enough to get rid of everything. Oh, God, these allergies. Oh yeah, no longer need that. It's beautiful to get rid of C++ code. It's natural. It's only natural. It is just the way the world works. It's got a beautiful sense of poetry to it. Removing C++ code is just perfect. It's the way things were intended to be done. We love to see it. All right. Just gonna redo these, and we're also gonna add terminal. Is there any other way to start the system, kind of? You start the system on the terminal. You start the system on the desktop. Oh, you start a system in agentic mode, obviously. Obviously. It should be C all the way down, exactly. Agentic mode. We're not. I'm not even gonna make the joke of adding that to the list. Speaking of lists, very close to 15K on YouTube, and nobody asked for this, but when I get to 15K, I'm going to be checking out Lisp. Very interesting language. I've been researching it a little bit. It seems cool. Also, the wording around that language is very similar to some tech company wording that we hear nowadays in the AI bubble. So I found that very interesting, how history never repeats but often rhymes. Oracle almost killed Java? Do you mean recently, or what are you talking about? I have genuinely been unplugged. Locked. Not locked in, which is not locked out. Which Lisp? The Spanish Lisp. Lisp. Should call it Lisp, by the way. Common Lisp, I guess. I don't even know. I watched a bunch of videos on Lisp, and everyone always talks about Common Lisp. If anyone knows a little bit more about the different Lisps and whatnot, what's going on with that, please let me know. Also, I know Haskell is like inherited from Lisp, if I'm not mistaken. Did I check out that language when I did my little language exploration back in the day? I don't think I did. I did check out some functional programming languages, but not Haskell. Yeah, no, I see that this link is not purple, but this one is. So I looked at it, but I didn't program in it. I did do OCaml, and I remember like I was having issues getting it to compile, and I was like, I'm gonna just do it next time. I'm tired right now. I ended the stream and then I never went back to it because I just didn't have to. It was also Gleam. That was a very weird one that I checked out. And hold on, let me get a list. Technically, the code that I wrote for Swift was also functional, but Swift is not a functional programming language by itself. It just allows you to do functional programming. It's a different thing. OCaml, hold on, let me not ask. Oh! This is not an AI overview. I'm sorry, like I said, I haven't really been plugged in. I haven't really been keeping up, especially with AI. Like I said, even most of my Twitter feed has been pop culture, not AI bullshit. Did the bubble pop and I just didn't find out about it? Like, what is happening? Why am I back to getting one of these instead of getting an AI overview? I'm... I genuinely haven't seen this shit in so long. Maybe I just haven't been paying attention. I don't know. But like, this is actually... AI probably does not know what functional programming is. I don't think that's the case. Yeah, scheme is mentioned second. A Clojure, Wolfram language, Racket, Erlang. Did I check out? Oh, Elixir? Maybe? It's in my history. Here it is. It's purple. I don't think I wrote this language. No, I didn't. From this list, I think I only checked out OCaml, and I absolutely hated it. Maybe Erlang? No, doesn't look like it. If I didn't open the official page of the language, I definitely did not do these. Alright, so yeah, I want to check out Lisp, which is not necessarily a functional programming language. Again, somebody who knows more about it, please tell me, because the whole point of me checking out Lisp is to not know about it, not be familiar with it. Even though, like, I have been watching videos on it, and I've been interested in checking it out. So, subscribe on YouTube, okay? Got 48 subscribers to go. My code is always functional when it runs. I use functions all the time. Look at that. Hold on. I got you. This is a function. Holy shit. That's a function. Elixir runs on the Erlang VM. Yeah, I heard that. All this is sounding very familiar, so I feel like maybe I did program Elixir. I remember Gleam. I did Swift's functional, and I did OCaml and I never finished it. Maybe I just never did Elixir, but somebody mentioned it when I did OCaml or Gleam. I don't know. I just genuinely don't remember. Also, I have the fan pointed at me. It rotates. It's a little bit broken, so I'm a little scared to rotate it away from me. All right, there's an ad starting, so let me fix that. Let me figure that out. I'll be back in 3 minutes, and I can't believe I've only been streaming for an hour. Feels like 3. We have returned. Seeing something weird in OBS. Well, this is Twitch, I guess. What's this supposed to be? What's that supposed to mean? What do I do with that? Anyway, OBS is not great to, like, the layout is very difficult to tile. Anyway, I saw this with a Google search that I was doing before. I saw this. So of course I want to look at the functional programming language tier list. By Zilenia, 2024. Allergies. Please. Fuck right off. I'm not sure why I have allergies again, to be completely honest. But I've been dealing with them for way longer than I should have. For things that are entirely my fault, to be completely honest. Choices that I've made in my life that have led to my allergies lasting twice as long as they should. This fucking sucks. Anyway. If you have ever wondered which functional programming language is better than others, which one to pick or which one to learn, here's my subjective tier list. By the way, hate reading articles? Check out the complimentary video which covers the same content. This is how you're supposed to watch the video, by the way. This is how you watch it. Take a little longer, YouTube. Can I not pop out videos? Damn, I never noticed you cannot do this on Linux. It's one of the best things that Firefox has on Mac and Windows. You can pop out videos. Anyway, this is how you're supposed to watch this video.
Language is better than others, which one to pick or which to learn. Here's my subjective tier list. And note that I'm a bit biased towards statically typed languages, and if you haven't seen one of
But yeah, don't feel like watching the video, we're gonna read the article instead. Alright, we start with Haskell. If you can only take one functional language to the desert island... I love that it's not to a desert island, it is the desert island. The desert island. The one. You know the one. You know the one. The one. Alright, let's not say the one island, because that has some implications. That's not what I mean. You should take Haskell because it offers so much. It's not for everybody, it has a steep learning curve that can feel like throwing somebody into the water and teaching them how to swim. Isn't that how they teach children? I probably should figure that out before I have kids. Yeah, picture in picture. Does it not have that on Linux? It's great that it has that. Now that the fan is no longer pointing at me, it's actually hot as hell in here. The AC is broken, it's hot as hell. I'm running out of sodas. Anyway. Laziness. A major reason to use Haskell. Fucking sign me up. Also a major source of frustration. Provides great concurrency mechanisms and powerful type-level machinery with great type inference. All of this has been there and stable for more than 20 years. Keeps growing. S-tier FP language. I have to say, I'm reading this. Don't expect any kind of reaction from me because I don't know. I just figured I would read this because I thought it was interesting. But yeah, don't expect a whole lot of like insight from me. I'm kind of just realizing that I have nothing to say about this. Let me at least look at the language's syntax. That's the best I can do. I look up Haskell. We're gonna look up at languages. We're gonna look up like images. I mean, looks okay. It looks decent. It has some fun going on. Oh yeah, equals sign for the function. Interesting choice. Use sieve.sml. It's interesting. If content then this, else this. Interesting syntax. I don't hate it. Not bad, not bad, not bad. For lazy people and steep learning curve seems like a paradox. Yeah, that's true. That's a little weird. Laziness is a major reason to use. I guess once you know how to use it, it allows you to just skip a bunch of stuff, a bunch of boilerplate, whatever. I don't know. Again, don't expect any insight from me. Then we got Scala here. Offers a gentler learning curve, and you can dial up the functional programming at your own pace. You can't go as far as Haskell, but you can go pretty far. Doesn't really tell me a whole lot, to be honest. You have to right-click twice on the video player to see picture-in-picture. So there is picture-in-picture. Interesting. Without you doing any research, I'm pretty sure it's the most used FP language in production, so it's also S tier. Functions are just like values. I see. Seems like it was being used that way, yeah. Yeah, on Linux, I don't know how it works. I do use it all the time on Mac. The picture-in-picture is really nice for YouTube. OCaml is another great language that offers OOP-FP flexibility. It was kind of shit. It stunk of cigarettes when I wrote it, and not just because there's a cigarette brand called Camel, although mostly that. Like, the analogy, that's how it felt in terms of vibe. It stunk of cigarettes, but the reason I used cigarettes specifically is because of Camel. That's what it felt like when I used it. It wasn't nice. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't interesting. It was just blah. When people talk about OCaml, they often talk about a powerful module system, performance, and strong developer productivity, like a reversible debugger. What does that mean? I can't speak on that because I haven't used it in proper projects. Hey, you know what? I may be here not having any clue what I'm looking at. But the author is in the same boat as me, so... Everyone is like, oh, I haven't really used it, but like, S tier. And I'm just here like, I don't know what you're talking about, but S tier. Yeah, what the hell. Polymorphic variants and effect handlers. My current preferred way of dealing with errors is polymorphic variants. What are those? And she's back. Yo, you're gonna respond to that? Alright. Work like usual ones, you just have to prefix their name with this. They sometimes lack flexibility when used in modular programming. Every constructor is assigned to a unique type when defined and used. Even if the same name appears in the definition of multiple types, the constructor itself belongs to only one type. One cannot decide that a given constructor belongs to multiple types, or consider a value of some type to belong to another type, or the type, and the type, and the type, and the type of the constructor, and the type of the constructor, and the constructor of the type, and the type of the constructor. With polymorphic variants, the original assumption is removed. A variant tag does not belong to any type in particular. The type system will just check that it is an admissible value according to its use. I kinda get it. In the context of a female dog. If I need to know about female dogs, I will not ask this bitchless guy over here. Nah. I have to ask someone else. Well, you can have live captions? That works on 4K? That's new. Also, I thought I had to toggle it. Oh well. By the way, the bitchless guy is hurt right now, so pray for him. Keep him in your prayers. It's just like a little bruise on his paw. That's it. It's perfectly fine. He was being very dramatic about it, though. Alright, so OCaml, I don't have much experience with OCaml, but S tier feels fair. So that's 3 for 3 for S tier. Polymorphic values are just generics. Sounds like it, but for values instead of types, I don't. Again, I hated this language. It was a stinky language. Again, stinks of cigarettes. But I don't know. I don't know. Also, am I a little biased against it because I know that the first Rust compiler was written in that? Well, I have two impressions of OCaml. One is knowing that it was used for the first Rust compiler, and the second one working with it, and I didn't like it. So backticks being part of a language's syntax, yeah. Any kind of stuff like that, like when you use something like this, okay. But like, what about this? You see how similar they are? You see how obviously you can tell the difference in this font on this computer. And also when the syntax highlighter very clearly tells you that there's something wrong here. It's a little bit too similar. Alright, pure script. A language I used. Okay. Highly underrated. Tidier version of Haskell in my opinion. Easier to learn and get into. Solid interop with the JavaScript world. Woohoo! PureScript offers great records and row polymorphism. I know I keep bringing this up every time, but anytime I have to manipulate some data, especially with JSON, I miss not using PureScript. Well, data manipulation is the main reason I like functional programming. So I totally understand where you're coming from with that. Kind of beautiful. It looks elegant. I know it compiles to JavaScript, so it's not, but it looks elegant. Alright, unquestionably S tier. That's 4 that are S tier. Okay, quick question. S tier. S tier. S tier. S tier. S tier. Takeaway S tier. That's my takeaway for this. Alright. Again, I'm not even able to give much of an opinion on these languages, so I just thought it would be interesting to read, but yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of insight, so I'm gonna go through them quickly. Spoiler alert, they're all S tier. Everything's great, everything's amazing according to this author. Sibling of PureScript, even more focused. It's both focused on the feature it provides and focused on beginner friendliness. My video on values, it's not for everybody, but has a solid niche. Elm Street Programming Language. I find it uglier than the other one. Although, good for using the arrows here. If I understand it correctly, Rock is bringing Elm's values and mindset to the back. Again, I don't know what I'm looking at, but the author is in the same boat as me. It's so beautiful. And most people don't really do functional programming, so you're on the same boat too. We're just sitting at different seats. This person's a first-class passenger, and we're third-class passenger. Is it called that? On the Titanic, I mean. Anyway, boat's going down. I mean, it's somebody who doesn't know about functional programming looking at somebody reacting to a functional programming tier list written by someone who doesn't really do functional programming all that much, who hasn't worked with most of these languages. Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Nice. Yeah. Unison. 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 It's another new kid in town. It can compete with Haskell in the amount of mind-breaking concepts. We have some actual code, which is nice. I don't know how you can do a... Oh, wait, one I know! There's one I know! There's one I know! And it fucking sucks, by the way. But at least I know it. Everything is a function. Deployment is done with a function call. Calling another service is a function call. And accessing storage is a function call. Well, putting the function in functional programming, what can I say about that? Implementation of direct style algebraic effects similar to OCaml's effect handlers. This? I feel like I'm supposed to put the keys on the Davenport. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be looking at. They mentioned that they promised to eliminate YAML and steer. I'm good with that. Come on, the one I know and you write 3 lines of it? Anyway, has a V1 release a couple months ago. Friendly language on top of Erlang runtime. Simple selling pitch, but quite a strong one. S tier. Once again, speaking of interop, F# might be a obvious FP choice on those .NET engineers. Either you're using C# already or you want to make games using popular engines. Engines? That S isn't really necessary. Pretty much the only one is Unity, and even then it technically compiles to C++. I haven't touched it, but I'm a bit biased, so S tier. Everything's S tier. In C, everything is a function, so C is a functional programming language now. Yeah, sure. No, I don't think they meant that Unity has F#. They meant that it works with C++, C#. Maybe compiles to C#, so maybe you can technically do that. I don't know. Not explicitly, anyway. But they do talk about C# a lot. Greets, list, oh. I was selecting text and instead I ended up scrolling. It's a very nice website. It actually works well and it's not tanking my FPS. The bar is in the fucking floor. Sub-basement even. C# is not just Microsoft Java. Pretty much. It sucks less than Java, yes. But pretty much that's what it is, yes. Alright. Back to writing functions in C, therefore making functional programming. Again, I'm gonna point the fan back at me. Hold on. Can it actually rotate? Or will it just fall apart? Seems fine. I should probably get a new fan. Alright, maybe don't point it directly at me. Maybe it's rotating really slowly. Alright, there should be fine. Alright. I actually have a replacement for this fan. I just have it in another room. Okay, so back to the to the allergies. Fuck's sake. If we're running in headless mode, we skip all of this visual configuration for the system. We skip this function, therefore making it a slightly less functional programming. Then, after that, we technically don't even need to type def this enum. That is the beautiful thing about this. It is pretty great that you can just do this. I can just create an eval function to evaluate the state machine. based on the value of boot states, which is both the enum definition and the value itself. So you can just do boots switch on boot states, and based on this, populate the switch. The other way. I'm also going to have a transition to boot SM transition. But this is where it kind of sucks. I have to use an integer to specify the new state. Where we do boot states equal to new state. And then based on the new state, we do something to initialize it. The eval is doing something else, actually. It should be different logic, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. I'm starting to remember how this works. This process is going to simply decide which process actually controls your system at the time. Each of these will be given its own process, pretty much. And alright, so the logic for eval bootsum, if we don't have a current process, we simply transition to transition. Based on if we're in headless mode, actually. If we're in headless mode, we transition to terminal. By the way, I need to give these a little bit of that. Otherwise, we transition to the boot screen. Right, that's it. If we still don't have a current process, then here we panic. Failed to load process with information. Failed to boot up. Boot state machine failed. And then we will put the boot state as the extra information that gets printed to give us a little bit of extra context for what's happening. Alright, we need to include exceptions, exception handler to have panic. Cool. Chrome has cool CSS only features for carousel, scroll marker, and scroll button. Interesting. Alright. Google couldn't confirm that I'm an adult. Oh no, they turned off personalized ads. No. You know what I find really funny is that all these tech companies are pushing so hard for ID verification and lock so many very clear adults into non-adult accounts, and the non-adult accounts are objectively better than the adult accounts. I have personalized ads off by default. Why would I want an adult account? You know what? Turn off all the ads. I'm actually... screw it. Yeah, turn off all the ads just in case, you know? What if I'm under 13? What if I'm under 13? Actually, look at me. Look at how small I look in this fucking chair. You don't know. So just to be safe, turn off all the ads. You're not supposed to be advertising to people under the age of 13 in the state of California. I'm making that up, I don't know. But anyway, just turn off all the ads. Just in case, just for fun. Eventually I'll get around to verifying that I'm an adult, don't worry about it. I'll get to it when I get to it. I'm a little busy. I'm a little busy nowadays, but you know. Trust me, I will verify that I'm an adult. It's in my best interest to verify that. Right? Totally. Alright. 13-year-old OS stuff. There's several. You see them occasionally on, like, Reddit. I'm 13 and I made my first OS. By the way, genuinely impressive. As long as you didn't vibe code it. If you did, just do it yourself. Genuinely impressive stuff. Alright, so, the condition that I was using to check the process is these. If current proc state equals to get rid of all this ugly shit, stopped, then we simply advance the state machine. Bootsm advance. Which is going to be a void bootsm advance function. That is going to choose how to transition from one step to the other. Alright, so if we're in state none, then based on whether we're in headless mode, we decide pretty much this. Pretty much this. Alright, so it should actually be okay to just do this. So this will never happen. Like, let's just start adding stupid checks. If it gets to that point, I'll add an extra if eventually. Alright. If no current proc, so I'll make the same exact check that I had in the other one. If there's no current process or the current process is stopped, then we advance the state machine. If we're in the non-state, which obviously this will be null, then we will transition into either the terminal or the boot screen. If we're in the boot screen, we'll eventually add an option to also have a login screen. But for now, we don't have it. We simply transition to BSM desktop. Of course, if we're in headless mode, we never get to the boot screen, so it's totally fine. Now, to transition from the login, maybe we'll want to have login happen separate from the terminal itself. So just in case, it will check if we're in headless mode, right? So if we do in headless mode into the login, then we go into the terminal. If instead we're not in headless mode, we go into the desktop. At this point, we've already logged in. And when we're in the desktop, we kind of just transition to none, really. So we just restart our state machine. And the same thing when we're in the terminal. We kind of just Reset the state machine, start this whole thing over. Alright, so there's going to be a little bit of extra logic for whether to use the login screen or not. I can maybe just even fake it right now. Yeah, screw it. I don't need to fake it. I don't need to fake it. I can just add it as a proper option. There's no need to fake it whatsoever. If you want to use the damn login screen, you use the damn login screen. There's literally a configuration for the password. Alright, so we haven't seen the screen in a while. I wonder how broken it is. But, okay. Our Stommel. I hate that Clang autocompletes function pointers as function calls. That's really annoying. I do have a concept of a character. I was reading two chat messages at the same time. I do have a concept of userland. Right. Can't really see this on Firefox, can I? Yes, that makes sense. Oh well. Sucks. Well, I should be able to see it, but on my laptop. Because I don't have Chrome on this at all, but I do have Chromium on my laptop. Well, it looks about the same. Am I supposed to be able to click on stuff? Oh, I see. Oh, it's nice. It's nice. It's nice. It's nice. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, cool. Has tabs, cards, list, gallery, hubs, pages, TV series. Has TV series. Cool. Oh, oh, for like choosing a TV series. Snap point per episode. Only generates markers for the first episode of a season. Also allows you to go between seasons. That's nice. Too bad I can't show it. Not on stream. If there's ever an installer or bootloader, it should be like 1 billion devices run redacted OS. See, that's the beautiful thing. You can write... this probably isn't going to compile right now, yeah. I should be able to run the non-compiled, the latest compiled version. You can write whatever you want here. I'm gonna do that, actually. Hold on. Hold on, let me see. 3 billion devices run Java. Okay, so I'm gonna go with 1 billion devices run redacted. Fucking amazing. It didn't even work. What the hell? I know you're picking... Oh, wait, I didn't recompile. Which means I didn't recreate this thing. Alright, there it is. 1 billion devices run redacted. There you go. Isn't that great? Alright, did I finish adding this stuff? The stuff that I actually need. The login. Yes. Alright, so... So this becomes a little bit more complex. If system config use login, then you simply transition to using the login. And that's all you need to do. Otherwise, you run this. All right. How many devices Java is on right now? Good question. Clear 2026. Mobile is a piece of crap. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have. Dog's name is Jester, by the way. Has he moved at all? Is he okay? Did a leg injury get to him? He's alive. He's alive. I wasn't entirely sure. He's just Andalusian, don't worry about it. Java is now running on 56 billion devices out of 3 years ago. I'm not sure how did they count all the devices that run Java. But I'm curious if we can do the same for .NET. I also saw one comment. Okay, here it is. Let's do this. I've got 4 devices. Anyone else? Do Docker images count? I would say no. I think hardware should count. I had 2. Okay, so we're at 6 devices with .NET. Keep track. Alright, 6. Windows and Ubuntu. That counts as 2 if they're on the same device. No, that counts as 1. Alright, so that's 7. Ubuntu runs it? Okay, so that's 8 because my computer here. I don't have Windows, so that doesn't count. Can we get to 10? Do we think 10 devices running .NET? Is that a possibility? I'm gonna go with no. There aren't even 56 billion devices? How many computers are in the world? In 2019, there were over 2 billion computers in the world, including servers, desktops, and laptops. So there aren't 56 billion, that's true. I genuinely took that number to be like, yeah, sounds about right. Now, of course, you gotta consider smartphones. 7 billion smartphones. As of 2025, so this is more accurate. The other one was 2 billion devices in 2019. Seem to briefly recall something that probably made a lot of people buy a certain amount of hardware in 2020. So that's probably gone up to 4 billion, let's say. Let's round that up. Let's round that together as 10 billion. And then IoT devices. The number of connected IoT devices growing 14% to 21.1 billion. Now, do they all run Java on them? Probably not. See, the thing about smartphones is, what does Android have, like a 50% market share? Android has 67.99. Right, so it has a 70% market share actually. 2/3 is Android, which means 2/3 of those devices. What number was it? 7 billion. 2/3 of that is running Java because it's Android. Don't think there's Java on iOS at all. That cannot be a thing. I don't think you can. It's not so much about whether you normally do, it's about whether you can. Used to be on iOS? Really? Runtime generated. See, that's the thing. It's more of a limitation. Because they prohibit just-in-time compilers and runtime generated code. So any kind of virtual machine shouldn't be allowed. But actually, I saw that there's UTM, which is just a wrapper around QEMU. UMT. One of those two. Unión de Militares de Tropas. So that's not it. UTM. This thing is on iPad. Which is QEMU. Which means you can download any kernel and run it on your iPad. So, little bit weird. 3 billion devices running Java worldwide makes sense, yeah. Smart fridges count as the 21 billion IoT devices. Which, by the way, is more than all the other ones put together. That's kind of crazy. Windows 12 in the making? No. No slop rating system here. Temple OS 2 in the making. Did I post the vibecoders thing that I saw, by the way? Did somebody post it on Discord yesterday? So I saw something, but I'm not sure if it came from my Discord or not. I don't think it came from my Discord, unless it's from the memes channel. I don't remember where I got that from, honestly. So sorry if somebody posted it to my Discord and now I'm taking credit for it. But yeah, I saw vibecoders, the OS that hallucinates. It was funny. It is just an LLM.
Next, and in fact, could probably make it smaller. I didn't bother. Have calculator. We'll have Internet Explorer, and the thing that's unique here, the thing that you will never have seen before, is that in these applications there is no code at all. Everything in all these applications is being hallucinated in real time by the AI. So there's no buttons, there's no event handlers, there's no logic to say what to do, but the application works. So if I do 5 divided by 3 and then equals, if I can find that, it's up there this time, it's 1.6. Okay, so
I love that it's up there this time because it changes every time. It is very, to be fair, this is not a serious project. He's very much just what are these recommendations, by the way? I turned off watch history. Excuse me? Excuse me? What the fuck are these recommendations? Yeah, he's just doing it for fun. He says he uses Copilot. Now, the thing is, if it's actually running on QEMU, so unless you actually use the local model, you gotta be talking to a cloud model. I don't know if Copilot can run locally. But if you're doing that, then you have to have, at the very least, I assume, a basic, real, non-vibe coded, well, probably vibe coded, but like real code networking stack and TLS probably at the very least. Don't think Copilot runs locally yet. Interesting. I think he kind of didn't necessarily dodge the question when they asked what model he used, but yeah, the video just cuts off when they're asking questions. So I don't think he ever responded to which model he used, but it's gotta be local, right? So yeah, it reminded me of that. Again, sorry if somebody posted it to my Discord. I just stumbled upon it yesterday and I don't remember how. Oh, can I search my Discord? Yeah. Nobody posted it on my Discord as far as I can tell. Alright, so might have just come across it on YouTube recommended and then I should have posted it on my Discord. Anyway. The only co-pilot here is me when I let Jesus take the wheel. I thought I saw something moving on my desk. I thought there was like a bug. Anyway, alright, so all the transition code is written on Pride Month, so that's great. So at the very beginning of the state machine, start at the very beginning, if we're supposed to use login, we transition to the login. Otherwise, we transition to either the terminal or the boot screen based on which one we're supposed to do, whether we're in headless mode or not. From the boot screen, we can only transition to the desktop. From the desktop, we can only transition back to the beginning. And from the login, we transition in headless mode either to the terminal or the desktop. And from these two, we just transition back to the beginning. Alright, so transitions are done. There could be a slightly more complex logic eventually for something like a screensaver type of thing. Just opening this, again, this won't run. Well, it will run. Opening this as a screensaver, which essentially reverts us back to the boot screen. Why am I calling it a boot screen now I think about it? Let's call it screensaver. Right, so transitioning back to that. But for now, we're good with this. And, alright. Alright, so transitioning to none does nothing. If we transition to none, nothing we're supposed to do. If we transition to the screensaver, login, or desktop, we do this. These three things here. The boot screen, presenting the login, or creating the windowing system. For the terminal, I'll get to you eventually because I don't really have that system set up yet. Alright, so if I'm not mistaken, we can possibly get away with these no longer being kernel level processes. At the very least, not the boot screen. That makes no sense that it's a kernel level process. But it is. So it's fine for now, as long as it works, honestly. Who cares? And the third one for the windowing system is in kernel processes windows dos.h. Alright, so that is going to create these processes. Terminal is not going to work yet. And, oh, these are not errors. These are removed code. Alright, so, you can go fuck. I mean, you're no longer needed. Thank you for your service. And this should compile now. No, it doesn't. Hold on. Probably better to do a clean because I removed the boot process.cpp and now that's required by the .o file. That's not really true anymore, but a clean should fix that. Indeed. And it boots with one less C++ class. I am happy. Although it's stuck here. If I'm not mistaken, because I'm in headless mode. Not really. Not really. Something else. Oh, because we never evaluate the state, perhaps? Could be a 1. That could very much be the one. Then we want to call this By the way, I'm going to call it boot SM eval. 1 billion devices run redacted. Login. Alright, don't look at my password. Took me back to the login. Also, because we're not in headless mode, I mean, we are in headless mode, but we still have a GPU because we don't really have a full headless mode yet. You can see the glitch that I was saying could possibly happen before. It is happening here, which is that something gets printed to the console and shows up here briefly. You can see it there. But anyway, you're not working. You're not working. What is happening? Why you're not working? All right. Based on the current boot state, you want to transition to this new state. You set the new state, and then you pick whatever you're supposed to do based on it. Where the terminal currently doesn't do anything. Oh, because the terminal currently doesn't do anything, it just advances to the next stage, which is none. I see. Alright, so I'm going to take it out of headless mode. That's what's happening. Because there is no terminal to transition to, it transitions to the terminal state and immediately goes back to the root state and it starts over. Yeah, that's what's happening. Alright, there we have it. Although, what I never saw was the screensaver. The way that it works right now. We have a screensaver. We have a login. Not logic, login. We have a terminal or desktop, depending on the mode that we're in. And then we have a root state. So we start here. Based on whether we have login or not, we go either to the login or to the screensaver. From the screensaver, we can go to the desktop. From the login, we can also go to the desktop. But that means that there is no screensaver if there's a login mode. So that... Maybe then I want to change this to screensaver. Was it inspired by Temple OS? Not really. Alright, it was there, but I pressed a key right as it started, so it immediately ended. Just pressing any key takes you out of the screensaver. Oh no, it was not there. I mean, it is, but I think it's like immediately detecting the input from the login screen. Because like here it is. Alright, so that might be a bug because so far it's always been the first one. But anyway, there we have it. See how simple this was? 70 lines of C code as opposed to 53 lines of C++. Plus, if you also include the fact that I really just added 53 lines here and then 22 lines here, that's 75. So technically 2 lines fewer. Now using the number of lines to indicate how good or bad something is doesn't really matter. Also, it's literally the same code, just not C++. Doesn't use a class. That's pretty cool. No allocations involved in this whole thing. Why would there be? By default, if you use a class on C++, there's going to be some sort of allocation. You can technically do it without allocating. You can do like something like this, which I'm not sure on the syntax of it. But essentially, instead of allocating a new class by allocating new memory, it just puts it inside of this pointer. I don't remember the exact syntax of that. So yeah, technically I could have done that without allocations as well, but kinda unnecessary. Alright, do I maybe want to fix this bug? You don't need to use new at all. That's true. Some features sometimes don't work.
Can you run it?
Yeah, I will in a second. Polymorphism kind of doesn't work if you don't allocate, if I'm not mistaken. You can use like a static class, stuff like that. I don't remember. It has some limitations. I've run into them at some point. Anyway, alright, so the boot screen, which I'm now going to rename to Screen Saver. Screen Saver, if I maybe learn how to spell. I'm not going to rename all of this stuff. Just the very basics of it. Alright, not entirely sure why you haven't shown me a bunch of errors yet, but okay. Ah, there we go. That's why, because there's an error here. And also, I changed your name to this. C++ classes are just structs with fields as private by default. Complications come from using more advanced functions, features like virtual functions rather than the class keyword itself. I just remember I ran into some limitation at some points because I wasn't explicitly using the new keyword. But yeah, you can get away with no allocations on C++ as well. Just kind of not the way that the language is works by default, essentially, which is fair. The theme on Zig is Synthwave 80 on Zig. on Z is Synthwave 84. On Zig, I don't know. I don't use Zig. Nice language though. Great things to say about it. Meh, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Anyway. Alright, about the terminal. About le terminal. Could I technically just create a terminal? In visual mode, yes. A terminal is kind of expecting visual mode. It is expecting to output to a screen. So I wonder what will happen if it doesn't have that at all. Probably nothing, but it's not going to be great. But anyway, yeah, if we go to terminal mode, if we're supposed to be in terminal mode, which is headless, and we shouldn't even run the graphics, but obviously, again, since we're creating the headless mode, it doesn't make much sense to disable graphics before the system is ready for that. So in headless mode, we're not supposed to have graphics. This is what happens in headless mode. We still get graphics again because, yeah, we get a login. The login does not show any kind of login on the console here. It doesn't allow input from here, which we'll need to fix if we want the headless mode. And once we log in, it doesn't know what to do because there is no program to start. So it just starts at the beginning of the state machine again, which just takes us back to the same point that got us here in the first place. Being forced to use an AI agent for a school project. Why would a school... Oh my god. Such is the world we live in. Okay. So this is a kernel project, kernel process. So really, I should be able to just do... No? This function. Yeah, okay. I should just be able to do this. To create a terminal like this. Using the execute function, not the syscall version of it, but the function. We just call terminal.read, which is a pre-built application. To have that, we will need to have a tools.h, which is what defines the execute. Hello, Peter. I just don't know what the terminal is going to look like because the terminal expects to run within a window environment. This will not be running within a window environment. Yeah, it crashes. Yeah, that's about right. Alright. Again, makes sense. It's funny because the terminal used to run not within a window environment. Then I adapted it to run within a window environment. Then I now need to adapt it to either within a window environment, within no window environment, or within itself. With no window, no graphics whatsoever. That's the other thing. If you don't want a window in environment, you just want a terminal, but you still want it to be graphical, I want to give you that option. So I'm going to add yet another customization option. Alright, we have headless, we have use login. I'm going to put them all together. I'm going to put them in a section called boot state. Because these sections are completely meaningless, by the way. These don't do anything in my TOML files. So, yeah. Environment term. Can I do something like that? Because I want to have multiple options for this. I want to have a terminal, window mode, or maybe even tile window mode. Different. Nah, fuck it. Use Windows. On by default. But you can disable it. By the way, yeah, I never gave a default value to the use login. Use login is off by default. Use Windows is on by default. Use network is currently off by default. Mostly because it used to crash because of an alignment issue with ARM, which required a little bit of re-engineering some code. That should all be done. I think we should be fine with usenet being true now. But whatever. Use Windows on by default. You can disable it if you so wish. And I'm actually going to do that. Because I'm supposed to test that feature. Yo. Windows. There we go. I think he moved. Right? Hi, Arctic. Oh, you're awake. See, now he's actually reacting. Sorry, is that the paw that's... No, you're good. You're good. You're good. It's his left paw that's injured. All right. So this desktop mode, I'm gonna rename it to Userland. Oh, now he's broken. What are you doing? See, the thing is, until recently, Monday was the first day. Monday, last time I streamed before today, essentially, so not this Monday, but the Monday before, was the first day it was really hot in Spain, and by the time that I streamed, actually, it wasn't that hot. Now it is, though, so you're gonna see him doing that kind of stuff a lot. Although, you know, I also used to stream back in summer, but that was a while ago. That was last year. Now it's this year. So for new viewers, yeah, you're gonna see him doing that. Alright. What do I call this state? Maybe I can actually simplify the logic. Yeah. Yeah, I can simplify this logic a lot. Okay, so I'm just gonna call this logic userland. The land of the user. Just what userland stands for, but that's not the common terminology that we use for this. Alright, so here's the thing. That is going to kind of standardize the transitions very, very, very simply, very easily, very coolly. We don't have to do this, we just have to do some userland. Then from the screensaver you move to userland. From login you move to, if you're headless, directly to userland, otherwise to the screensaver. So that condition stays there. And in userland you transition to none. Alright, cool. So the logic in userland gets a little bit more complex though. I just got rid of it. Fuck's sake. What I need, which is this. Alright. In userland, if system Jester, what are you doing? Alright, hold on. I'll be right back. Alright, it sounded like he was scratching very intensely. I don't want him to injure himself further. But honestly, I just think it was just the bed shaking with that made it sound so intense. Anyway, I'm not based in Italy, but I was born there. Frankly, between me and the main contributor of this both being Italian, this is essentially an Italian operating system. It's great. It's wonderful. Alright, so if system config headless or system config use Windows, not use Windows, then we do this shit. Otherwise, we do this shit. Alright, so that kind of simplifies my logic a little bit because the states are always the same. You don't transition to different states. Makes my state machine a lot cleaner because it's literally just this, kind of. It's a bit simpler, yeah. Hi, Blurry Squire. And when we go into userland, we can go either into the terminal or into the windowing system. We go into the terminal if we're supposed to be headless, or if we're not supposed to use the windowing system at all. Now, that is the thing about the windowing system. This technically should work, even if I don't make the system headless. I could make it headless, or I can tell it to not use Windows, and it will have the same effect. Just that headless is supposed to be no graphics whatsoever, whereas no Windows is like terminal, but should still have graphics. But again, because we're not fully prepared to go headless, both cases we have graphics. But again, it will crash. Yeah, there it is. And we can see the crash happening. Because we are in headless mode. Whereas if we're not in headless mode, okay, so that is a difference that's going to happen. We're not going to do the visual configuration if we're in headless mode, which means we never disable the visual console. So we get that glitch. But if instead we do disable headless, we don't have headless mode, but we have terminal mode, then we get this. Alright, it crashes, but it no longer does this little text thing here. Alright, so that's correct. The screensaver is just what used to be the little boot screen, the little animation that it shows. That's it. The screensaver should show... Does it? I don't think it does. Screensaver should show if the system isn't headless, pretty much. Okay, I see why not. If we're in login and we're not headless, we should go into the screensaver. We're not headless, so we should go into the screensaver. I don't think I saw it, if I'm not mistaken. It crashes. No. Oh, never mind. Okay, I forgot to fix the bug that was happening here. The thing is that when I press the key for entering in the login screen, I stop the process when I press the key. And when I release the key, that gets processed by the screensaver, which reads it as I should quit. Alright, so do you not get input? By the way, these use a input system that's not really necessary to be this complicated. Where do you read that? Okay, here it is. Read event current. Okay, so this can be just read event. And kbd dot type equal to key press. Now we stop the process. That's gonna fix our issue. Pretty sure. Okay, so we log in, and it takes us to the screen. This is the screensaver that wasn't showing before. Because essentially it was processing a keystroke that came from before it even launched. But then the terminal crashes, so we get taken back to this. Simply because it restarts the entire flow when the terminal crashes. Which, funnily enough, that's what happens when you crash userland. And if I ever want to make it like it has a recovery mode, then I just change this to another state for recovery mode. Alright, so is there anything else left for me to do? I think we're good. I could modernize the code in these a little bit. Frankly, like, this is using key presses. Woohoo. That is old, buddy. Also, the UI code that they use is very old. I won't get to that right now. That is not super necessary right now. Alright, instead, I'm more so interested in trying to get the terminal not to crash. See, the reason the terminal crashes is so far we've assumed that we always have a windowing system. Now, the terminal's code is a userland application. And come on, what are you waiting for? I'm just gonna keep working in the meantime. Thank you. So let's decode these addresses real quick. Yeah, so the shell is failing when calling the print specify new line. Because eventually it gets to this function. Put char. Okay, so that's failing because the console expects visuals, which it doesn't get. Okay, so that makes sense, right? No problem. The thing is, here it is. The console comes from here. This is the parent class to the terminal. And it has a bunch of visual functions. Mostly two. Redraw. No, really just these three. Get context, flush, and screen ready. Okay, so these three, which are virtual functions with no default implementation. Then I have two implementations of them. I have the K console and I have the terminal. The K console is the one that shows up here. No. Is the one that shows up here. That one implements these three functions. Get context with just GPU get context, GPU flush, and GPU ready. So these three. Whereas the terminal implements these three functions using the userland version of these, which so far has always been windowed. We just have to kind of remove that assumption, not make it windowed anymore. Now, screen ready is always true. Not really a problem in this case. Flush calls commit draw context, which is a syscall, and get context calls request draw context, which is another syscall. Yeah, I'm refining the system startup and kind of allowing it to go into headless mode as well as non-windowed mode, where you launch the terminal, nothing else. Although it should be possible to run a single application, which is how the system used to work actually before I introduced Windows. It was always meant to be a single application system. Now we're going back to that. Now here's the thing, the commit... This is the function for commit frame. We simply skip calling this if system config dot use Windows, if no, system config use Windows. By the way, the theme is now becoming more of a settings thing. I'll have to change that, but yeah. There's that. And then in GPU request context, well, if if system context, system config dot use Windows, then you get the window context. Otherwise, you do a GPU get context, which is gonna give you a pointer. Okay, so it's gonna be a little bit more complex because we're working from userland. Because we're working from userland, we cannot really do this. Because this draw context is GPU only, kernel only. So essentially we're supposed to create a window context. But I forgot I had this composite. Okay, this is actually going to come in really helpful. Alright, so let me do it like this. If there is no use Windows, then we're going to run some extra code and we're just going to return early. Alright, so this is where I should do that. This is where I'm going to do that. Alright, and what is the code going to be? Another thing, am I null checking this? I'm not null checking this. Okay, that's interesting. Alright, now I am. We are going to get the draw context from the GPU get context. So this is the global window context. We get it from there. And we are going to simply populate the out context with its values, which we can do like this. But then changing some values in it. Okay, so first off, the frame buffer, we're going to create a new one. This is the code for getting the frame buffer. All right. Okay. This is where we allocate the frame buffer. It really is that easy. Alright, so then we don't return here. We're instead going to elsa with this code. Alright, we're gonna give you a frame buffer. but using the context with context height. So we're going to create a new frame buffer for you based on this size. Cool. And then here we just replace these calls with this. And everything should work fine. Surely I'm not introducing more bugs than the ones I already have. Including the really ridiculous one that I showed earlier. Surely this will work fine. Alright, so that's how we create the window context. When we commit the window context, well, that is the interesting part about it. Here I have to be careful too. I am going to keep track of it. If I have an existing window context, I'm going to free it. With its size coming from the window context. That's the context, not window context anymore. Now it's just a screen context technically. Alright, so if no window context, now if there is a window context, we free it, then we allocate a new one, and we keep it as the new non-window context. Cool. Alright. Now, when we are committing the frame here, we do want to composite. The input is going to be let me make it just a no window context like that. Okay, like that. If there is a frame buffer, then we're going to free the frame buffer. And if we are going to create a new one by just assigning to the non-window context based on the value of the context and replacing its frame buffer with this one. Alright. That way I can completely ignore everything you're telling me to do. No, not really. I can't really do that. When you commit, you will give me a frame context. Okay, so this. I will need this. And I will need this in the non-window context. Alright, so I'm going to take the information that you tell me of which parts of the screen need to be redrawn, but everything else I'm going to completely ignore from you, such as where to draw from. I know that. I don't care what you have to say about that. No offset. Also screen size, I don't care what you have to say about that. And then I'm going to use the screen context as the value for that, which... How did I copy an empty line? Not sure how I did that. Alright, there it is. And this needs to be a pointer, so I need to do it like that. Alright. That should allow composition. That should allow me to have a single window, a single full screen application technically. It is a full screen application. I didn't even thought about that. That is a full screen application. Cool. So yeah, I'm creating full screen applications with this. I had a cat whose fur color was similar to your dog's. We used to call her Mancha. Really? Because I used to have a Munchie. But she didn't have that many spots. This guy should have been Munchie. But that's more of a girl name, so that wouldn't have worked. He's gonna have some new ways of lunging around now that summer's coming, by the way. And it crashes still. Okay, that didn't work. By the way, all the changes that I did in here, I need to undo. The entire point was to not have to do them here, so can get rid of that. Get rid of that. But I think the crash is gonna stay, most likely. Oh! I can't type. I know exactly why I can't type too. The reason that I cannot type is that this is missing. This, to be fair. Just this. Setting focus. Because request draw context also gives you focus, so you take input. Terminal mode. It's a bit broken. I think it's the terminal that's broken. Okay. We have terminal mode, and technically, we have full screen mode now too. Now, full screen mode. Do I want to keep it like this? I don't know about that. I don't know about that. The way that full screen works on Mac is really interesting. Because you can full screen pretty much any application. And swiping will just get rid of it. Kind of like you do here. Technically, I mean, like that, but just a gesture to get rid of it. Whereas, does that happen on Linux as well? Is that a thing that you can do on Linux? Technically, you can full screen any application on Linux as well. I don't know why I said that like it was a Mac specific thing. You can full screen any application, but yeah, on Mac you can just swipe, and it literally shows you an animation very similar to this one, just better because it's Mac. And it allows you to scroll. To kind of scroll away from full screen applications. So that's nice. Maybe I want to have it like that. I haven't really thought that much about full screen applications despite being a game developer. You would think I would have considered a possibility, but whatever. That and the fact that technically all applications used to be full screen before I introduced Windows. But yeah, this mode is technically full screen applications now. Okay. That is surprisingly interesting to do. This little boot state machine now, which is C, no longer C++, can now handle. I genuinely thought this was going to be a much shorter thing. I was going to run out of content. I mean, not really. I didn't really think that was gonna happen. But yeah, it ended up being more interesting than I thought it was gonna be. And now I'm starting to feel my nose really like having a hard time talking properly. My voice is probably very nasal right now. What if I launched the launcher? Just no longer in windowed mode. Feel like that shouldn't have failed. Is that a fuck-ass memory corruption again? I swear to God. That's stupid. Alright, doesn't matter. Here's the last thing I want to do. The terminal will eventually need to go headless mode as well. So we're going to give it an argument. Should be enough to do arguments like this, although that's technically not allowed. You don't like that very much, but it should be enough to do this, maybe, even? No. I don't understand. This is a char pointer. This is a char pointer pointer. What's your damn problem? But I don't remember how to hardcode argv values anymore, apparently. But what I wanted to do with this is that... Let me see if I can do it like this. If we're in headless mode... Oh, okay. You just want it to be const. That good? It thinks it's a weird type? It said that? Hold on, let me see. It wants it to be const. Which is interesting because this here is technically not a const char pointer, and it wants a const char pointer. So literally the word const is what's missing. Could I even do a cast? Yeah. This could work. Although this is technically what I want, so I'll keep it as I really want it. Which is this. If we're in headless mode, I want the terminal to know that so that it doesn't try to do any graphics. And we'll also need to have UART input, not just output, but also input, to allow for that kind of thing. Then headless mode can truly be done. Can truly have the system running headless in just the terminal. I'm not going to do UART input today, although it shouldn't be particularly difficult. Never done it, I would just have to look up some very simple code for it. But yeah, we'll just have a boolean headless mode for it, right? And boom, boom. And as a matter of fact, this simple toggle here, this screen ready, will actually prevent us from even trying to draw to the screen if we're in headless mode. Right. But to do that, we need to parse the arguments, which comes from here. Okay. Which means I need to make that headless thing public. Alright, so in the main.kpp, if argc and string compare argv against headless, which is case insensitive 8 characters, equals to 0, God, you love to complain about super shit C++. Then we'll put the terminal in headless mode. If I did everything correctly, that's how it should work. Last thing I need to do, of course, is to put my system in headless mode. Even though we'll still have graphics because we're not ready to go full headless. Good. Bad. Bad. Very bad. I did do everything right. It is in headless mode because, again, it has a little visual glitch right now in the headless mode because it's not supposed to have visuals. So I'm not particularly concerned about that. That is kind of expected behavior. I do expect you to execute with one argc, and this is its value. You have a pointer to the string. You will then copy that internally if everything goes correctly. The mode is default. Just to make it explicit. That's 0, so it's exactly the same thing. Just the code's a little bit more readable that way. Yeah, so I do think you are in headless mode. You should be anyway. Oh, that's not right. That's why you were complaining. Oh my god. That's why you were complaining. Yeah, I think I got really lucky that that didn't crash. That does not feel headless. I'm used to the keystrokes. Oh, it is in headless mode. Okay. I'm used to the keystrokes for the Windows system, so now I keep pressing keys that now do nothing. Okay, so the terminal is in headless mode. Okay. Doesn't feel like it. Another thing technically missing from this is that because we're in headless mode, we're supposed to kind of be able to see everything that's happening. If you look at just this console, right, ignoring what we're seeing here that we shouldn't be seeing because we're in headless mode, allegedly, ignoring this, just looking at this, I have no idea that I'm supposed to be writing stuff in here. I don't see anything. It also doesn't take any input, so that kind of makes sense, but whatever. Alright. Yeah, we're adapting the terminal to work in headless mode, but there's pretty good progress, I have to say. And this is the first time where visual glitches are not only expected but kind of welcome, because yeah, you're supposed to not have any visuals, so of course it's gonna glitch. A bunch of stuff that we should have done, we're not doing because I was gonna say glitchless, but no, we are headless. Alright, so the important part is everything is configured correctly, everything seems to be working correctly, everything seems to be going well. We added a lot of new options. And yeah, that's it for programming right now. Now here's the thing. I mentioned earlier I wanted to work on different things. I opened... Not sure why I did open project. Doesn't really matter. This thing, right, is what I did today. It's supposed to be Markdown, by the way. Can I just like mark it as Markdown, even though it really isn't Markdown? And maybe not with a comma, with a period. There we go. So it has that. At least it looks a little bit clean. Yeah, so this is done. UART input is a thing that we're going to need if we want headless mode. I mentioned this thing about docs. This has nothing to do with the whole headless mode thing, but I kind of forgot to mention it earlier because Google did something that's very, very unexpected. I forgot when it did it. Functional programming languages. Yeah, here it is. It's doing it again. It's doing it again. Holy shit, this is actually so amazing. It is not using AI. That's the fucking abysmal state of the tech industry right now. That it's surprising to not see AI. But it's using these little snippets, right? Which are probably read from Wikipedia using some kind of LLM technology. Makes sense. But hey, at least it's not a stupid ass AI being like, certainly, here's a list of functional programming languages. Shut the fuck up. So yeah, I welcome this kind of thing. They do predate LLMs, but they do have text analysis, to be fair. And Google has been working on text analysis for a really long time, to the point that they created transformers, right? It was them, right? Yeah. So yeah, the technology is probably similar to LLMs, but you know what? We embrace this shit. We don't embrace the LLM fucking slop. That's always nice. But anyway, it made me think of this thing here. So, speaking of which, before I continue, quick little announcement. I completely forgot that tomorrow I'm gonna be streaming. Actually, probably for the next 2 weeks on Saturdays and Sundays. I'm essentially gonna be streaming all 4 days that I stream at the same time at 8:30 p.m. Central European time. So the same time that I started to stream today, also tomorrow, Sunday. So I'm gonna be streaming in the evenings, not in the afternoons for the weekend. For the next couple of weeks. I signed up for a vibe coding in Rust course, and I need my afternoons free to pursue that endeavor. Of course. So yeah, tomorrow I'm going to be streaming at 8:30 p.m., not at 3 p.m. Forgot to mention that. Was about to end the stream, Loki, so kinda needed to mention that before I got to that point. I did not actually sign up for a vibe coding in Rust. Just to be clear. No, that is a joke, but I am going to be streaming at 8:30 p.m. That part is true. I am changing my schedule for the next 2 weeks or so. I am not going to be learning how to vibe code in Rust. If anyone is actually hosting a vibe coding in Rust course, please send me a link so I can laugh at you. Besides that, no, that part was a joke. I am changing the schedule. clarifying because, of course, mixing jokes and serious topics maybe not the best thing to do. Anyway, yes, tomorrow streaming in the evening, not in the afternoon. Sunday as well, and next week most likely as well. Then I'm back to my normal schedule. 2 weeks from now, essentially. Unless I really like it, but I kind of want to have Saturday and Sunday afternoons, evenings free, so probably not. But yeah, I need afternoons free now, so for the next 2 weeks I'm going to be changing my schedule. Alright, so I talked about this. No, it's not because of the heat, I'm just busy. I wrote this stuff. Airports make me want to write documentation, apparently. And allocators. I've done both. 2 allocators written on a plane, 2 documentations written on a plane. If I'm not mistaken, going to the same exact place too. But don't quote me on that. Anyway, yeah, I wrote this little very basic list of bullet points. By the way, I don't even know if the formatting of this thing is correct. I don't write Markdown all that much. And I was actually a little bit afraid that anyone would see me writing Markdown and assume that I'm using it to talk to an LLM. I was genuinely embarrassed to be writing Markdown in public. Anyway. Yeah. I don't actually have this thing published anywhere yet because I want to use it inside the system, of course. Now here's the thing. This is supposed to be a very quick 200-line overview of the entire system. To be fair, it goes over everything. Kind of. There's a few things that I marked as a work in progress, such as networking and signals. But also a few things that I probably didn't document, such as what I did today, the headless mode and all that stuff. I'm gonna add that once it's actually like finished. But yeah, it is supposed to be like 1 sentence to explain a feature, unless it really needs some extra explanation. Right, so this reminded me of that. Because this, what we have here, is kind of how I would like to structure my documentation. Right, I want to know about your system's file system. So I search for the file system. Alright, here it is. This is the default information that it gives me on the file system. Very basic stuff. Tells me that the root is /. It's made up of system modules, which get mounted to a specific mount point. And are available at /mount point. Just to be clear, it's always on the root directory. Then each module defines its own functions for reading, writing, opening, truncating files, getting status of files and folders, and listing directories. And then the status of files and folders stat informs you of the type of file and folder, and the size of the folder is reported as 0. And then it talks a little bit about aliases. Okay, so that is the very basic overview of it. And I think when you look up information on the file system, it should give you this. Then you should have a link to go more in depth about some of these things. Like, you don't need to go more in depth about the root being this thing. If you need that information, that's not part of the operating system's job to explain it to you. That's Wikipedia's job. Like, genuinely, I think I'm giving you more than enough information about this point. But, you know, this one could link you to more information on how system modules work. Stat, there's not much need to give you more information. And aliases, I can give you a few examples. So yeah, I was thinking of structuring it something like this. Where you get the most basic information here. You click and you get way more information. Right, so kind of like wiki style documentation. I don't know. I kind of want to explore where I can take this kind of thing. But I do know one thing that kind of bothers me a lot sometimes is I know how, I don't know, reading a file works. So when I do man f read, I have all of this. It's actually very small. Okay, so it's not. I was expecting this one to be a lot worse. Let's say maybe man f open. Alright, so here it's yapping and yapping and yapping and yapping and yapping. When really maybe I want some specific information. Like, oh, I forgot the signature of this function. So, okay, that's what I need. You know, some very basic information on the very basics of it. Then if I really want to go in depth, then I go in depth, you know, like that. So again, kind of like having an overview and then being able to go more in depth and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to build the documentation system like that. And now that this thing came up, it really reminded me of, that is how I want the overview to work. You look up the most basic generic term in the documentation like file system, you get this stuff. And then it can give you more information if you go into a dedicated file for the file system. I would even want to do it in a way that, for example, filesystem.md. So here I talk about the file system. And here I have the overview. And in the overview, I put these things. And then, you know, I have more sections like for developers, which is a section that I have in the file system, as well as file system modules, folders as files, buffers, data signatures, userland virtual system for developers, all that stuff. Yeah, so here I can go on a yapping session as much as I want, write as much information as possible, but you're trying to go to overview.md. What it does is it goes through every other file, giving you the overview of that file. So it could even like auto create an overview of the system based on these things that I built. Kind of similar to how this works. That's what I mean. So yeah, instead of like copying and pasting the same stuff here and here, I would like to do something like, I don't know, something like this maybe. Or even have it automatically, where it goes through all the files, finds the overview section, and in the overview.md file puts that in. Right, so kind of dynamic documentation like that. I kind of want to build a system like that. So I kind of want to explore how to do that. Of course, I already have parsers. I already have renderers. I already have everything that I might need to do that. And that is actually the main reason why this overview.md file is not available on the system right now. Because I want to maybe auto-generate it. Maybe have a reader for it. I don't know. But I guess we'll figure it out sometime this week. Alright. This weekend, I guess. Alright, so tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. I'm going to start by working a little bit on UART input, unless I find that that's a whole can of worms. I do think it would be nice to have, to be able to run the system in headless mode right now, even though it's going to be more useful when I'm working with like the distributed system and whatnot, more hardware support and all that. But since all that is coming, headless mode is going to be kind of important. And UART input is possibly the best way to get headless mode, because we can do it even from the Z terminal or from the normal terminal to give input to the system like that. Alright, that is it for today. So again, tomorrow I'm not streaming at 3 p.m. I'm streaming at 8:30 p.m. Sunday most likely as well. Next week most likely as well. After that is back to normal. Alright. Thank you everybody. See you then.